Good evening and welcome once again to Straight from the Sky. I'm your talk show host, Bobit Avila, and tonight we talk about something very important to Cebu, and that is the new airport that we have, that we are so proud about. Unfortunately, thanks to the COVID problem, our airport cannot be used as it was designed. And tonight we have with us our dear friend Andrew Harrison, who was my first guest in January, but now we'll talk about something else. And that is something that we really need to talk about, so you'll know what's going on in our airport. And we'll be back with Andrew Harrison after this break. Please don't go away.
Sumuko ka na! Hindi ako suko! Sumuko na! Hindi ako suko! Sumuko ka na!
Tagal. Parang internet mo. Get the Sky Fiber Super Speed plans. Up to 200 Mbps for fiber fast days.
Ay, sumuko!
Switch to Sky Fiber. Ay, may lag. Parang internet mo? Get the Sky Fiber Super Speed plans. Up to 200 Mbps for fiber fast days. Switch to Sky Fiber.
3 major financial needs to complete financial picture. 1. Investment. To generate continuing income for when you retire. Letting money work for you. 2. Income protection. Life insurance. To protect your family if you die too soon. Life insurance protection help finance your children's education, pay estate tax, pay debts instantly. Number 3. Healthcare. To provide you healthcare when you retire or when you stop working. Someone to take care of you when you get old. What if I could tell you about a product that provides complete solution to your 3 major financial needs? Kaiser Premium Health Builder provides total solution to your healthcare, investment, and insurance needs.
Thank you for staying with us. Again, it's an honor and a great pleasure to have with us our dear friend Andrew Harrison of the Mactan or Megawide what you call airport that's running what you call Terminal 2 and now Terminal 1. And yes, we had him only last January because we were proud to show you Terminal 1, what they were doing and what they have done to Terminal 2 on another taping that we had. So, okay, let's start with that. How's everything with you, Andrew?
Good morning. Great to be here with you once again, Bobit. I guess we must say we're blessed. We're blessed in the sense that we can sense a recovery. We can sense an ability of the economy to start moving again, people starting to get back to work again. It's slower than we'd like it to be, but we remain highly optimistic. But of course, it's been very, very difficult times, not just for the tourism industry as a whole, but for all the businesses in Cebu and its surrounding province. So it's been a very challenging time, and we hope that we can play a part in helping the economy to recover.
Well, this is what you call time that we never expected would ever happen, and I'm sure it never happened to you and your company.
No.
Never. So, and I'm just saying that after 5 years of working in Cebu, creating that new terminal, we were now about to really enjoy that, what you have done in all these years, and then something happens like this. But before we talk about the COVID problem, what have you finished with Terminal 1? Is that already finished?
Yes, so under the concession agreement, after taking over terminal operations in 2014, we were required to construct Terminal 2 to provide the much needed capacity, because Terminal 1 was originally designed for 4.5 million passengers per annum. And when we took over in 2014, it was already handling 7 million passengers.
Wow.
So it was already bursting at the seams. We then put in place some efficiencies to reduce congestion and make the airport more efficient and also more pleasant. And those were all temporary measures that we put in place because we couldn't wait until Terminal 2 was constructed. Under the concession agreement, once Terminal 2 is finished and launched, then we are supposed to renovate Terminal 1.
Yes.
So we did a part renovation, which was pretty extensive, in 2015 and 16, and then at the same time constructed Terminal 2. And after that, we then went back to finish Terminal 1. I think the biggest benefit in terms of Terminal 1 is we've made it feel more like an airport. It has its own unique theme, which again goes back to the concept of the resort-themed airport. So it was designed by Royal Pineda and his team, Buji Lahug and Royal Pineda and the team. And essentially the idea was to create an open space that you feel a sense of movement. One other very important aspect was the architects wanted a perspective where you could get off at the curbside and see all the way through to departures, and vice versa. And we've achieved that now. The other significant thing we did was we closed the arrival road, and it's now become an airport village. It's become a better place for people to meet and greet their loved ones and even spend time with them before they depart. So we know the theory. In the Philippines, one person arrives and half the barangay goes to meet them.
Correct.
And so we needed to actually reflect that cultural trait and provide the facilities to ensure that people could enjoy that type of practice in a much better environment. So significantly, we've enhanced the amount of retail area so that we can provide offerings for the full range. You know, whether it's kettle corn you want, or you want a Bose coffee, or Starbucks, all of these various brands are there, including 7-Eleven in the airport village. And it's become a much better place for people to wait and meet. If you recollect before, you used to have this very narrow curbside, and meeters and greeters used to wait on the road with so much dust and vehicle fumes. Yes, and sand, absolutely, and vehicle fumes.
Now they getting the rain.
Yes, that's right. Now they wait in a much better environment. We have a transportation hub, which is much more efficient for pickup and drop-off, including public transportation such as the buses to the city, yellow cab, white cab, so everything in one location. And then we've got an expanded car park, which sits in between Terminal 1 and 2 for those who want to park and stay longer.
You know, I know that you got New Delhi Airport about, 8 years ago?
2006.
Yeah, 2006. Oh no, more than 8 years ago. And can you just give me a story on the New Delhi, what you did?
Yes, so New Delhi Airport, when we took over in 2006, the airport was handling 16 million passengers. It was again operating with terminals that were beyond their design capacity. And so very quickly, outside of the concession agreement, we built a terminal that was designed to handle 18 million passengers. That was not part of the remit of the concession agreement, but we felt we had to do it so that we could provide a better operating environment for the passengers at the time. And at the same time, under the concession agreement, GMR was required to construct Terminal 3, which is an integrated terminal building of about 502,000 square meters of terminal area. Now, this terminal is the 8th largest single terminal building in the world.
The eighth?
8th largest
Wow.
single terminal building in the world. And it was constructed in a record time of actually 37 months. Now, that's not because we were very enterprising. We rose to the challenge, but it's largely because the concession agreement required that that terminal was ready in time for the 2010 Commonwealth Games. And we were the first facility in India for the Commonwealth Games to actually be fully ready and meet the obligations in the concession agreement. Today, the airport handles 70 million passengers per annum.
70.
70, from 16
Wow.
million to 70
From
million.
16 million to 70.
Yes, to
My
70.
God, that's huge.
Yes, that's enormous. More than 1,300 flights a day we
Wow.
have. Yes.
So all of that also, just like here in Mactan, has also clamped down in a way because of COVID-19.
Yes, we've also seen a complete reduction of traffic in India. We have two airports currently operational in India, Hyderabad and Delhi, and that's been a big challenge. But it's been a global challenge. It's not just the airports in the Philippines and in India or elsewhere. It's all over the world.
everywhere. Yeah.
You know, you take a look at Singapore. They shut down 2 terminals.
Yes.
Yes. You take a look at Hong Kong. They've also shut their midfield terminal.
Yeah.
So all over the world, airports are shutting down. Heathrow, they shut down terminals. Gatwick, they've shut down terminals in London as well. North Terminal has been shut down. And it's simply because there's been a total erosion of air travel demand, particularly for leisure travel.
Yeah, that's really true. So we are in a situation where Cebu is not the only one affected, but the whole world.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so at least you still have how many, more than 20 years
Yes, just under.
for
yes.
the, so I would like to believe that maybe by December things will resume to the old ways, but certain, for as long as maybe India would be able to come up with a vaccine for the COVID, then things will be better for us.
Yes, there are many countries working currently on vaccine programs. Of course, India offers one of the lowest costs
Yes.
for medication and healthcare products. And so there's a lot of effort also going on, not just in India, but other countries, to try to find a vaccine to provide people with the means of having a relief from the fears that we're facing today.
And I'm really happy because, actually, China was able to get like 95% of the world supply of medical products. And that's because China went out of its way to capture all these, what you call, companies, compete with them, and since they cannot compete anymore, then China gets it. But because of this COVID-19, what you call the game plan of China has been uncovered. That even if they may get it cheap for you, but when they control the product, at the end of the day, they will outprice you from all the prices in the world. And so it's still not a very good, what you call, possibility. So even the EU has looked into this, and the United States, and call it timely that Donald Trump was able to have a slogan called America First. And because of that thinking, America is now really looking at what happened. It has what you call relegated its control of many of its products to China. And I think they understand it is a great mistake.
Yes, yes. Well, I think if you look historically, if you go back to about 1970, only about 30% of world trade as a percentage of GDP could be linked to global interconnectivity. Today that number is much higher, it's over 60%.
Correct.
And so there are reliance on countries. So you have, for example, a system where raw materials are bought in country A, shipped to country B, packaged and made into the finished product, and then sold in country C. And so that's created an interdependency. And as a result of that, and this pandemic, I think many countries are now starting to realize that localization is very important. And I think we will see a shift from this level of globalization, where we concentrate greater on our local economies to see how we can be more resilient.
That's really true. Very good observation, Andrew. And we'll be back with Andrew Harrison after this break. Please don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
Ay, may lag. Parang internet mo? Get the Sky Fiber Super Speed plans. Up to 200 Mbps for fiber fast days. Switch to Sky Fiber. Bagal kasi. Parang internet mo? Get the Sky Fiber Super Speed plans. Up to 200 Mbps for fiber fast days.
Ako single.
Switch to Sky Fiber.
Thank you for staying with us. So let's now go into today's pandemic, what has happened to the airport? How many flights have been canceled? How things are going in Mactan Airport?
So I guess the important thing to go back to, if we take a step back in time to 2014, so the partners GMR and Megawide Corporation brought new passenger traffic
Yes.
to MCIA. We started off with 7 million, and that was comprised of 7 international destinations. Today we fly to 26, or certainly just before the pandemic, we managed to bring that number from 7 to 26 international. When we took over, there were only 15 domestic destinations, and just prior to the pandemic, there were 35, because we created Cebu as a gateway to the Visayas.
Yes.
So Visayas, Mindanao, both for tourists as well as those visiting friends and relatives, and of course those business travelers for meetings or other areas of work that they needed to travel for. And so people could fly seamlessly by connecting through Cebu to get to so many different destinations, including a daily service to Dubai, as well as 3 times weekly service to Los Angeles, which was certainly a first for us. And the pandemic hit us globally. Now, what's very different about this pandemic to perhaps SARS, because most people remember the impact of SARS. SARS spanned a period of about 8 months and took 778 lives, and basically was only present in 26 countries. In the span of 3 months, COVID was present in more than 200 countries, and today nearly 500,000 people have lost their lives. So it is a vastly different type of pandemic. What's also not helped matters is the spread of news and the way the news has spread. If you look really, there's more focus on the number of people who have caught the illness and less focus on how many people are recovering.
Correct.
Which is not really a great way of reflecting the great sacrifice that our healthcare workers are making to get people well again.
Yes,
I mean,
true.
it's like a war zone if you go into some of these hospitals to see what these people are doing to get people well again. And that doesn't seem to be reflected. So there's a greater sense of pessimism than optimism. If you pick 10 people on the street, 7 of them will paint a picture of doom and gloom.
Correct.
And only 3 of them might suggest some optimism.
Yes.
We need to shift that balance because we need to look forward. We need the economy to start again. The impact of this pandemic has not only been to decimate many businesses, but also to decimate Cebu's mainstay business, which is tourism. Tourism is something that accounts for so many jobs. You'll be surprised to know, Bobit, that the number of jobs that people in the Philippines depend on for tourism exceeds the number of jobs that people depend on for tourism in Thailand.
Wow.
And Thailand has 35 million tourists a year.
So you mean to say tourism in the Philippines exceeds the one in Thailand?
No, the number of jobs dependent upon tourism is
okay.
more because Thailand has very large industrial and manufacturing industries.
Yes, true.
So therefore there's a lot of employment that's dependent on that. But what it highlights is the fact that tourism is actually a mainstay in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And the people who are most affected, Bobit, are people who are at the lowest level of the income ladder.
Correct.
You know, with the closure of hotels, restaurants, cafes, well, so many things that are driven by tourist visitors and tourism visitors and those visiting friends and families have all been affected. And we need the optimism to focus back on getting the economy started so these people can get back to their jobs and can start working again and earn a decent living so they can provide for their families. That is the most important aspect because if we don't do that, we cannot prosper. So for me, that becomes a big priority.
So right now, we have not restarted our what you call domestic airlines. Maybe next week they will, and it will not be as much as before. And then our international is also very limited. I think now should be a golden opportunity for GMR Megawide to really focus at maybe they should start in Cebu already at this point.
Yes. So I'm pleased to say that we started domestic operations on the 6th of June.
Okay.
Now, we are GCQ territory, and under the IATF resolution, GCQ to GCQ travel is permitted. However, there was a condition that we had to ensure that we met the requirements of the LGUs for safe travel.
Correct.
And I'm very grateful to Governor Garcia, Mayor Labelia, Mayor Cortez and Mayor Ahong Chan, because they were all incredibly supportive of the efforts of resuming domestic operations as a measure of kickstarting the economy again. That appears to be the clear focus of the governor and all three mayors, and we're very grateful to the support that they showed. As a result of that, we've started domestic flights, but the flights are very few. We used to have 122 domestic flights a day. Today we have less than 8 flights a day.
Wow.
Yes. Now, we must remember that even under GCQ, travel is restricted to essential travel, so leisure travel is not permitted. Now, there's no definition for essential travel, but if you're going to visit a family member that you haven't seen for a long time, that's not really classified as essential travel. But travel for meetings or for work is essential travel. So therefore, there are very few people who are looking to travel, and as a result of that, demand has been highly eroded, and that's why we have very few flights. So I think it's important because on the one hand, we have to focus on the safety of the people in terms of exposure to the virus. But at the same time, we need to strike a balance with allowing the economy to resume. And I think the greater balance needs to be towards allowing the economy to start resuming, and air travel, of course, is very important. Now, for international travel, we don't have any international flights at the moment. And that's because there is a restriction that international flights can only arrive in Manila, and there's a cap currently of, I believe, 600 passengers per day. But that's largely on account of the fact that all international arriving passengers are subject to a COVID test, and the testing capacity in Manila is limited. So we took the initiative of building a COVID lab at no cost. We took that full cost. It's not a commercial enterprise. We did it because we believe that it's important to help the government in terms of providing capacity for COVID testing to allow all the stranded OFWs and seafarers to come home. Many of them were stranded in Manila. Processing was a big challenge, simply because the capacity was overwhelmed and stretched. So by providing this capacity, some of these OFWs and seafarers can come directly to Cebu, where actually many of them are destined to travel to. And then they can either connect on onward flights through the rest of the Visayas Mindanao region, or they can travel by road to their various provincial areas. So we hope to have this clinic up and running by next week. The lab, I beg your pardon. Yes, the lab.
So how big is that lab?
Oh, it's nearly 500 square meters.
Oh, that's big enough.
Yes, yes.
And supposed to be a, what you call a returning resident, comes into your lab, he will be tested.
No, the procedure, Bobit, is that this lab is somewhere else. It's not in a passenger terminal area.
So it's not in the terminal?
Yes, no, it's elsewhere in a separate, it's in a separate building. But what happens is when passengers arrive, they clear immigration, they then go down into the arrivals hall. The arrival hall is divided into 2 sections. One section is for reclaim, and one section is for the testing booths for the COVID testing, the swab testing. We specified that we don't want blood samples drawn because a lot of people are nervous about that. So we wanted nose and throat swab, and that's the technology which these tests are based upon. So the nose and throat swabbing is done. The passengers have counters that they can approach for OA, Marina, and any of the other LGUs as well. And after they've been tested, they're then transferred to designated quarantine hotels. The test results are available after 24 hours, and therefore after 24 hours, the passenger is free to travel onwards.
They will know the results in 24 hours?
Yes, within 24 hours. Just after 24 hours from the test being taken, they will have the results.
This what you call pharmaceutical product, of course, does not come from China.
No, this is from Roche. Yes, this is from Roche.
I know China has gotten so many negatives because their testing facility, what you call schemes, were actually 30% were really run down.
Yes, yes. So this concept is a very important concept, and the initial start of this process was from Secretary Tugade, who basically had the vision of saying if there were labs in airports, this could really help. And MCIA was a great proponent of this concept to say this is something that we should do collectively as a team to make this happen. So we're very grateful that Secretary Tugade had that vision, and then we followed through in delivering it. Now, as part of that, we of course ensured that the lab can deliver the results within 24 hours, and we've appointed Prime Care, who operates our 2 clinics, to be the lab operator.
So that means MCIA is even better than Manila.
Well, we will have an initial capacity of 900 per day going up to 1,500 and eventually 3,000 tests per day. So we technically will have more capacity than Manila, but Bobit, I stress, rather than competing, what we want to do is add overall capacity so that the Philippines as a whole can benefit. We want other airports to also be able to offer this type of facility so that the capacity can be adequately distributed.
Well, whether you like it or not, you will still be ahead of Metro Manila or NAIA for that matter, because you're actually what you call one step ahead of the problem. So I think we're doing the right thing, Andrew, and
Thank you.
I'm really pleased that to hear that in my show. And we'll be back with Andrew Harrison after this break. Please don't go away.
First song. Thank you.
Bilis maka-sound trip. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
For today's look,
Bilis makaganda. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
LU pare.
Bilis maka-vacay. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
Thank you for staying with us. We're now halfway to the show talking about what's happening at the Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 of the Mactan International Airport, run by the Megawide GMR conglomerate. And with us is our good friend Andrew Harrison, the big boss in Mactan. And yes, there is something that he has done that I would say would put Mactan ahead of NAIA when it comes to COVID testing. So tell us more about it.
Yes, so the idea is that this will give the opportunity to help government support the return of the OFWs and seafarers, and of course other Filipinos who are also stranded abroad, because the pandemic has resulted in the closure of many businesses, some for a short period, some interim, and unfortunately in many cases redundancies for people. And so we have Filipinos who are stranded abroad and who want to come home, and so the capacity constraint is not allowing them to come home as soon as they would like to. So we would like to play our part in doing so. And within 24 hours, people will have their results and they can travel onwards. Now, for OFWs and seafarers, there's a slightly separate procedure because the LGUs need a certain number of days to process them for onward travel to their provincial homes.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, it means that for those categories, they will stay an extra few days in the hotel. But interestingly and very positively, the LGUs all appear to be operating on a schedule of 3 to 5 days. So it's great. Nobody has to spend 14 days in quarantine because you get the results within 24 hours, and at least then the people can be processed properly, because it's also important that people don't arrive unannounced in their barangays and overwhelm the barangays as well, because there's a lot of sensitivity about that. So due process must be followed, and we're very happy that we can play a part in that process.
Well, there was this article I read in the Philippine Star who was saying that we were calling our OFWs as our heroes, our new heroes, and there they are sitting in the sidewalks, waiting in line for their permits and all that. And you can just imagine the article or the guy, the author, saying that don't let our heroes sit down in the sidewalk. They're our heroes. They should be given chairs at least. So that's the problem with this government. So what happens now? You're supposed, or you have built a facility about 500 square meters?
Yes, just under 500 square meters.
Tell us about, did the DOH approve it or anything?
Yes, so 2 days ago we had an inspection team, inspection and certification and licensing team come in, and we prepared one of the rooms in the lab to be a meeting room. So when they sat down for the introduction and the briefing, they asked whether we could then take them to the construction site for the lab. And I said, which construction site? And they said, for the lab. And I said, but you're in the lab already. The lab isn't a construction site, it's been constructed. And we built it in 12 days. Because we understand the importance of getting this done efficiently. Now, of course, building the lab is only one part. You then needed to bring the equipment in. So we brought all the equipment in by a special cargo charter aircraft dedicated to carry only this equipment, because it's very expensive equipment and some of the items are extremely large, so they cannot travel conventionally on a regular commercial aircraft. So these items are brought in. Most of the major equipment is by Roche, and this allows us to have the testing done so efficiently that we can guarantee results within 24 hours.
So the DOH people, like all government people, were thinking that, okay, I'm going to build this, what you call this lab. And then they probably thought that like Cebu City built its, what you call SRP, North Reclamation facilities for 100 million. They said in 15 days or 20 days, but they really did it in nearly 30 days. And you did it in less than 2 weeks.
Yes, but having said that, I also understand there are more than 100 labs under development in the country currently, COVID labs, and many of them are at construction stage, because we've only reached this milestone now where lab capacity is seen as an important element to support society. Now, I guess they're used to traveling to labs that are still under construction, so they perhaps just thought we were still under construction. Now, like any certification process, of course, they will come up with observations to help ensure that we meet the standards. But the lab was constructed, designed and constructed to DOH specification and DOH approved the specification of the lab, and now it's all about the processes, procedures, and training. So all of those elements are now being undertaken, and we hope to go live with the lab by next week.
So that is really a what you call a feather, another feather in your cap, Andrew, because after what you have done for Cebu, building the Terminal 2, refixing or rebuilding Terminal 1, now because of this COVID issue, you suddenly needed or felt the need to build already that facility, that lab, and then you didn't have to wait, and you built it right away.
Well, you know, Bobit, the people here, Cebuanos, put their faith and their trust in us.
Yes.
When they supported the airport concession being awarded to us. It is our responsibility throughout the life of the concession to demonstrate that trust that was placed in us is justified and remains justified. So I mentioned to you that restarting the economy is important for us, and our contribution was recognizing that as heroes of the nation, OFWs should be able to come home in a much more efficient way. Consider last year a remittance of more than $33 billion back to the Philippine economy. So the role they play is very important. But having said that, by having these hotels used as quarantine facilities means many of these hotels, and I'm afraid some of them had even shut down, these hotels can now participate in this program, providing essential services. And those who are at the lowest level of the income ladder, including those in housekeeping, in restaurants, cafes, etc., in the hotels, even those involved in transportation, all of those people at least have a chance of getting a job again and starting to work, so that they can put food on the table to feed their families and meet their daily needs. So in a way, it was our way of saying, what can we do to help participate in the national effort to restart the economy of Cebu? And that really proved to be the right thing to do.
I think you're doing the right thing again. Like I said, people didn't know you 6 years ago. They didn't know who is this GMR Megawide company. I even fought you even if I didn't know who you were and who your company was. But I put my bets into your company because I felt that I think you are the right people to come into Mactan. And I was not wrong. And I'm still not wrong. I'm going to say it to you, Andrew, that I'm still correct, that my assessment to you and to your company is still on track. In fact, supposed to be by next year, we're supposed to open the third Mactan Bridge.
That's right.
Are you already preparing for the approach?
Yes, so we've been in talks with MPIC, Metro Pacific, about a future link to the third bridge, which will provide more direct connectivity to the airport. So we've had a lot of discussion. They're an organization that is also close to our hearts. So we communicate frequently because we are both developing what we classify as landmark projects for Cebu.
Correct, yeah.
And so it's very important that we collaborate. And I think, you know, just taking a step back, Bobit, you know, 6 years ago when we had those challenges of being awarded the concession, of course, Megawide Construction as a breakthrough construction company that introduced the only of its kind prefabricated construction technology was known. But GMR as a foreign partner was not known. And so I stress the point that our partnership today allows us to demonstrate our capability together because we each bring something important to the table to ensure that people get the best out of this partnership. And so we will continue to justify that trust that was placed in us. And I think it's important to recognize that as the economy changes, we have to be able to respond to those changes and find innovative ways of helping this economy to recover. And that's why we did what we did. I want to say that, of course, many others are doing great things as well, and we want to recognize their efforts and collaborate with them. But for now, we want to show optimism, and very importantly, we want to show the world that it's safe to travel to Cebu again, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our thoughts on that.
Well, you know, like I said, traveling is not really the problem. The problem is, number one, like, if you have a plane coming from New Zealand, for instance, they don't have COVID anymore. So when they arrive here, you don't have to, what you call, bring them to your lab because they have no COVID at all. So why bring them to a lab to test them? So these are issues that the IATF must now learn because there are many countries that have very few, like for instance, Taipei. Only 20 people were killed because of the COVID. But in fairness to the Philippines, only 1,000 people in almost 3 months died. So it's still a low number compared to the US where 100,000 people died. And these are things we have to learn, and I hope we will learn. And we'll be back with Andrew Harrison after this final break. Please don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
Huwag mo siyang pakasalan!
Bagal kasi. Parang internet mo? Get the Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans. Up to 200 Mbps for fiber fast days.
Ako single.
Switch to Sky Fiber.
First song. Thank you.
Bilis maka-sound trip. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
For today's look,
Bilis makaganda. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
LU pare.
Bilis maka-vacay. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
The theory of decreasing responsibility explains how your life insurance needs change over time. In the early years, you may need a lot of life insurance coverage, but in the later years, you may not. In the early years, when you're younger, you don't have a lot of money, but in the later years, you'd better have money. How does this fit with your insurance needs? Today, when you're young, loss of income due to a premature death would be devastating. Your children are young and you might have high debt and a house mortgage. Your need for insurance is highest at this time. When you get older, retirement income is needed. Your children are grown, your debts are lower, and your mortgage is paid. If you have savings, you are self-insured, diminishing your needs for insurance. That's the theory of decreasing responsibility. By having life insurance when your financial responsibilities are the greatest, you can have peace of mind knowing your family's future is protected.
Thank you for staying with us. It's enough talking about the COVID-19 because anyway, we can't solve that problem. We can only meet it accordingly as it comes. I'd like to know now, I heard there's a fourth bridge that Japan has approved that will pass by northern side of Mactan going to, I think, Mandawi, if not Consolacion. So the question now is, I know that you had plans to put a reclamation area in the north for your future because I'm sure because of this COVID, I don't think GMR and Megawide is moving out. So I'm sure your future plans are still there. Tell us about it.
Yes. So, Bobit, our optimism isn't just short to medium term. Our optimism is long term also.
Yes.
We had submitted a proposal to the government, which is an unsolicited proposal for a second phase of expansion of the airport, which essentially would provide for Terminal 3, as well as 2 satellite terminals connected by an underground people mover, and a second fully independent runway. That would have taken the capacity of the airport from what was planned as 29 million by the year 2039 to over 60 million by the year 2055.
Wow.
So essentially a doubling of the capacity. And we believe that there is sufficient demand that will grow that requires an airport of that type of capacity, plus 2 independent runways so that we don't become as constrained as some other airports that have a single runway.
Correct.
It's a challenge with a single runway because if you have disruption, either because of maintenance or unfortunately an aircraft incident, then you're completely basically isolated and crippled from that perspective. Whereas if you have a second runway, then at least you can operate on the second runway independently. That also helps, very importantly, for capacity, because if we're to grow to around 60 million, then the second runway is actually very, very important. Now, one of the things I want to say, Bobit, is that we talked a lot about Megawide and GMR in this consortium, but we must also recognize MCIA, because MCIA plays a very big part in the success of this airport, including what we do day to day, as well as in terms of our future planning. We could not have achieved any of the things that we've achieved without MCIA. And that's why, for me, it demonstrates that a private sector and government partnership is the best form of partnership when you're providing a public utility to serve the traveling public. If you think about it as just being something that you do privately, that doesn't seem to have the same positive value as partnering with government. So for me, this would be a winning formula in any project where we partner with government. MCIA does a lot, and people may not see that, but I want to recognize what the board of MCIA and its management team do in all the different things that we're doing. I mean, I give you an example, the COVID lab. MCIA has been at the forefront, pushing and ensuring that we deal with the regulatory requirements in a timely manner, and we get the necessary support for the lab to go live. So there are a lot of things they do. In terms of the future planning, they are working very diligently with us to help us navigate the issues that we have to deal with, including how to go about with the land reclamation, the approvals, the consultation with affected parties. MCIA is at the forefront of all of that. So I'm delighted that we have a partner such as MCIA to help us succeed. And finally, the airport is an environment. So when people come to that environment and they feel its vibrancy and its positivity, it's not down to one entity alone. It is down to all the entities who are there, be it OTS, Customs, Immigration, all the agencies, Bureau of Quarantine, all of these government agencies all play a role in making people feel welcome, creating that positive vibrancy. And let's not forget our concessionaires, who have placed a great amount of investment in providing services and goods, F&B, retail products to passengers when they journey, whether you're an arriving passenger in the airport village, you're a departing passenger in either Terminal 1 and 2. Duty-free Philippines. All of these entities provide that vibrancy that make the airport successful. So the partnership model is the only model that works for the benefit of the riding public.
Correct. Well, remember, you are here in Cebu because I was in MCIA at that time.
Yes.
When we approved it.
Yes.
That Mactan can be rented.
Yes. Yes.
Who would believe
Yes.
that happened
Yes.
almost
Yes.
25 years ago?
Yes, absolutely, Bobit. That vision is really the reason why we're here today. And so if anybody for any moment thinks that the role of MCIA is not as critical as we see it, then they must understand that without the vision of MCIA, there would never have been a privatization of this airport.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And you challenged us though, Bobit. Remember, even after we took over, you challenged us. I used to think, who is this gentleman who's really giving me such a hard time? And then I stopped and I said, hang on a second, listen to what he's saying and learn from what he's saying. And as a result of that, I have to tell you, Bobit, one of the main points you championed was the second runway.
Correct.
And today we have an unsolicited proposal for exactly that, because
Yes.
you helped us understand the importance of that, Bobit.
That's why it's for me, I've always looked at Cebu as a bigger hub because I've been always looking at Kaitak Airport.
Yes.
The single runway, one of the most dangerous in the world. And then here comes Hong Kong turnover to China, and then UK builds a new terminal and it becomes what you call the Hong Kong International Airport. And unfortunately, because of the trouble between Communist China and Hong Kong has now gone higher, even Cathay Pacific has suffered because they don't have what you call a domestic flight. Unlike our local airlines, we
Yes.
have domestic flights.
Yes.
And so these are what you call issues that I have learned through all these years. And for me, our biggest problem before the COVID was really the traffic in
Yes.
Cebu.
Yes.
But then that traffic suddenly disappeared because everybody stay home because of COVID. But then remember, by next year, the new third bridge will be open. When
Yes.
that third bridge opens up, that means there will be a new route to Mactan without going through the traffic that we had already experienced in Mandaue. And so, as I told you, I recently read that Japan approved the fourth bridge. Now, I don't really, and I'm sure you haven't really sat down with them, but I don't know where the fourth bridge would interfere, if not what you call, will be connected to the future of Megawide GMR.
So, Bobit, on the fourth bridge, of course, we've only also just heard in the news about the fourth bridge. We don't have much detail. But certainly one perspective that we have is that, yes, the third bridge is a very important connectivity link. We are yet to understand more about the fourth bridge. But as we build more and more bridges, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that in parallel, we need other solutions to reduce congestion.
Correct.
Building roads is one solution, but it's not the only solution. So we need to look at mass transit systems, whether it's the monorail that's being proposed, whether it's the bus rapid transit system that's being proposed, or even cable cars, which have also been discussed. We need to look at various options that will help ensure the movement of people is efficient and affordable as possible. So a bridge is only one solution. But we should be looking at all the others in conjunction. And I hope that the same level of collaboration that we've enjoyed with Metro Pacific will be open to us for the developers of the fourth bridge, so that we can ensure that these facilities complement and don't hinder each other.
Correct. So actually, the future of Cebu looks very positive, despite the fact that we have a COVID that is what you call stifling our growth. But then, as I said, that stifling our growth will really depend on whether, hopefully, an Indian pharmaceutical company would be able to discover a vaccine that will really put a stop to the COVID-19. Then, when that happens, we can move forward.
Yes, but Bobit, even before that happens, just as a final note of optimism, the countries that we are most dependent upon, which are South Korea, Japan, China, these countries are actually going to be the ones that recover faster than other countries globally. So provided we as a tourism ecosystem deliver a product which demonstrates the level of change that we have made to give people the assurance that they're safe enough to travel to us, will help us recover sooner. Because this pandemic is not just a pandemic of COVID, it's also a pandemic of fear.
Yes.
To counter that fear, we need to give assurance.
Yes,
and so
true.
the social distancing measures, everything we do through the entire journey of a tourist will help us recover faster. I believe that Cebu can recover its tourism in a much shorter period than many other regions of the world.
I also believe in that, Andrew, and I think with what you just told me about your lab for COVID that you are opening next week is for me a very positive angle for many travelers who are planning to come to Cebu. And when that happens, that means my, what you call, confidence level is going to be on a very high note. And unfortunately, we run out of time. We'll just ask Andrew for his parting shots after this final break. Please don't go away.
First song. Thank you.
Bilis maka-sound trip. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
For today's look,
Bilis makaganda. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
LU pare.
Bilis maka-vacay. Ganyan sa Sky Fiber Super Speed Plans.
Thank you for staying with us. Let's now ask Andrew Harrison for his parting shots. Andrew?
Thank you. I guess what I'd like to say is that we would like to see a collective sense of optimism. We'd like to see a concerted effort. Many industries have suffered. We also welcome the benefit of government stimulus that can help many of these affected industries recover sooner rather than later, and certainly ensure that there is no demise of these various industries, and with that, the loss of many jobs. We'd like to see ourselves recovering. We believe that that possibility is a reality, and we think we can realize it much sooner than most people expect we can. But it requires us to all work collectively, and we like to play our part in continuing to serve Cebuanos and the wider riding public and our international visitors to demonstrate the warmth and hospitality through our airport gateway. Salamat kayo.
Well, again, thank you so much, Andrew Harrison, because why? I had to bring you back. You were only here last January, and with the COVID, I needed somebody who can actually improve or uplift my spirits, because after all, hopefully by December, our tourism might be back on its feet, and by that time we will have the new bridge open, and by that time maybe the traffic will be improved, and things will also improve as the COVID vaccine will be discovered, and really is something that we are all waiting for, so that we can get back to our normal lives. And really, it is a positive note that I heard that Mactan will now have what you call a COVID lab that will bring out anyone who comes to Cebu through Mactan. They will be able to don't have to stay for 14 days, just 5 days, and then they can go home to their provinces. And that is something positive we've heard after all these months of negative in Cebu, and you've heard it here straight from the sky. And Bobit Avila, thank you.